I want to go ahead and address the Jonathan Majors situation right now at the top of the video to get it out of the way. For those of you who don't know, it is my personal policy that I do not discuss the personal lives of the performers or creators that are the subject of my videos, and this situation is no different. I feel that as fans, as audience members, as people who are not friends or family of the parties involved, or even witnesses to what happened, it is distasteful for us to voice our opinion, especially when all we know about the situation all is based entirely on stuff that we've just seen on the internet. So our only part in situations like this, our only involvement when terrible things like this happen, should only be three things. One, stay quiet. Two, be respectful. And three, and I can't believe I'm having to explain this in 2023, but show as much sympathy as you can muster towards the victims. Because no matter how these situations end, they don't end well for them. So if you're thinking about voicing your opinion on this in the comments section, I highly suggest that you don't. Especially if you're going to do something as ignorant as comparing this situation with the situation over at Warner Brothers with Ezra Miller. That's a whole other studio with different hiring and firing practices. Warner Brothers is the same studio that did nothing when the controversy about Joss Whedon came up, or Amber Heard, and now Ezra Miller. That's Warner Brothers over here. Over there. Over here, the movie that I'm talking about is a movie that's being distributed by Disney, who for the past decade has had very strict firing practices when it comes to anyone who threatens the brand, not just an actor. I'm talking about people like John Lasseter, who was fired over allegations. No proof, no arrest, just allegations. He was fired. John Lasseter, who is the founder of Pixar, the guy that created Toy Story, Bugs Life, the Cars franchise, the guy who directed Toy Story, the first fully computer animated feature, the movie that changed the way animated movies are made. They fired him. They fired James Gunn over tweets. And while there were some investigations happening, making sure that there was nothing worse connected to James Gunn, Warner Brothers hired him, and that's when he made the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. Thankfully, nothing worse was connected to him, and Disney hired him back. But the point that I'm trying to make is that this is the way Disney has been operating for the past decade or so. This is the way they are. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they fired an actor when they were more than willing to fire people like John Lasseter and James Gunn, who, for all intents and purposes, are more valuable to them than an actor. So if you're outraged by this whole Warner Brothers situation, and you want to send them a message, you want to let them know that you're not okay with this, it's very easy. Don't watch the Flash movie, don't talk about it. Don't support it, don't promote it. The end. Okay, if you threaten the money, you send them a message, you let them know that this is not going to fly. Okay? As simple as that. So that's it for me discussing the reality of the situation. Done. On the subject of the fictional character of Kang the Conqueror, it it seems like it's very likely that they're going to recast the role. There's some small debate about this on whether they should do this, whether they should just uh, discontinue the character, do something else for the Avengers movies. Um, I'm of the school of thought that at the end of the day, as much as I love this franchise, as much as I enjoy these movies, they're just movies. All right? Would it be more ideal if Jonathan Majors could continue playing Kang? Sure. Oh, he did a great job for, at the end of the day, he did a great job as this character. Yes, I wish I lived in the reality where he was continuing to play the character and went on to play him in the Avengers movies that are coming up. That would be fantastic, but that's not happening. He is not the first nor the last MCU actor to be replaced. Terrence Howard, Edward Norton, Josh Dallas was replaced in the Thor movies. Nobody noticed. Right now, as I'm recording this, they replaced William Hurt, the late William Hurt, with Harrison Ford for the Thunderbolts. In this movie that I'm talking about right now, they replaced Emma Fuhrmann, who played teenage Cassie Lang in Avengers Endgame, with Catherine Newton. Okay? This is not an isolated incident. They have done this before. They will do it again. They were business guys. They make movies and they make things that make us very happy and make us so passionate about them that we have to talk about them and watch them over and over again. But at the end of the day, they're a business, and sometimes employees have to be replaced. It is what it is. There's no reason to take it personal. Seriously, maybe, but not personal. And then on top of all that, Kang is one of the few characters that has a built-in explanation as to why somebody else might walk up claiming to be Kang. As we saw in the post-credit scene of this movie, there are hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of variants of Kang. All right, so for a different Kang to show up in the next movie played by a different actor, it wouldn't surprise me. There's so many different variations of Kang by his own nature, by the fact that he's a time traveler and he has traveled to all these different timelines and alternate realities of the Marvel universe with different versions of him. In the comics, there is a female version of Kang. There is a little boy version of Kang. There's a really old version of Kang. There's a version of Kang from ancient Egypt. There's an ancient version of Kang from the far future. There's a version of Kang that's an alien on another planet. It keeps going and going. Personally, I think it would be awesome if the next time we see Kang, Kang is female and is played by Keke Palmer. That's who I'm voting for. Anyway, so there you go. On the subject of Catherine Newton playing Cassie Lang in this movie, no, it doesn't bother me that she was replaced either. Emma Fuhrmann, who's a great actor, I like her very much. She did a great job as Cassie in Avengers Endgame, but the fact of the matter is that was the Russo brothers movie, and she was not Peyton Reed's choice. Peyton Reed has been directing this character, telling this character's story from the beginning. He knows who would be best to play his version of Cassie Lang. Is his choice, and I respect it. And then on top of that, Catherine Newton did an amazing job in this movie, just like she does in every movie that I've ever seen her in. She is very likable, very quickly, and a believable action heroine, and very good at playing Scott Lang's daughter. She is a delightful screw-up who means well, and I dig it. My only minor complaint about the character of Cassie Lang is that I wish we would have seen Abby Ryder Fortson in the movie, the original actor who played Cassie Lang in the first two movies. I know that Cassie's now much older. She's 5 years older than last time we saw her. That we saw her before the snap, I should say. But we could have still seen her in a flashback. We could have seen her the day that the snap happened. We could have seen her throughout those 5 years where she was surviving without her dad and she became interested in studying the quantum realm. That would have been interesting. Also, Kang's main superpower is his ability to manipulate time to create time dilations. We could have seen him tempt Scott into helping Kang get his power source by making Cassie younger. It's like, oh, I could give you those years. I can make her younger and give you those years back. Many, many different ways that we could have included her character in the movie. Lots of characters from the Ant-Man franchise that I wish we could have seen this time around for the last installment, potentially last one in the franchise. Louise wasn't in the movies, played by the great Michael Pena, and I 100% agreed. I can't think of a reason why he couldn't have just been over at the Pym house and gotten sucked into the quantum realm with them and gone along on the adventure. But it is what it is, man. I just felt like his voice was very much missing in the movie. All right. So, those are just opinions. Let's talk facts before I give you full-on opinions about the full movie. Here are some facts. This is the first Marvel Studios movie since Captain America the First Avenger that didn't do as well. And before anybody screams at me, yes, I know Captain America the First Avenger is a great movie. It has its strong fan base. I'm a big fan. I love it. But it didn't do that well. It underperformed at the box office. And Marvel Studios has had hit after hit after hit after that. Not counting the movies that were released during and after the pandemic lockdown. This is the first movie since the first Captain America to not do as well. Yes, it was number one over the weekend, but as most of you know, it was not received well by the critic. It was lambasted by a lot of negative reviews, and it wasn't review bombed like Captain Marvel or Black Panther. These were legitimate reviews that were predominantly negative. And yes, it made over 400 million at the box office, which isn't bad for your standard movie or your standard big budget blockbuster movie, but this is a sequel, and it's the third one in the franchise. And for a sequel to be considered successful, it has to make more money than the movie that came before. And the original Ant-Man reached the magic number, in spite of it being about an obscure superhero that everybody underestimated. It kicked ass at the box office, and it got to the magic number, which is 500 million, which is the number that says, A, they got their money back, B, they're making a big profit. This is the number that makes all studio executives hard. And then, of course, Ant-Man and the Wasp surpassed that and made 600 million, over 600 million at the box office, which is amazing. So Quantumania barely cracked 400 million, so yeah, it underperformed. It didn't bomb, but it didn't do as well. Yes, it will definitely make its money back during the home release right now. I bought it on DVD. A lot of people have watched it on digital that don't have Disney Plus or have subscribed to Disney Plus to see it. So yeah, they'll make their money back in the home release. But this is definitely the first movie in a while to not do as well. However, from my point of view, just the fact that this movie exists, just the fact that there's an Ant-Man trilogy is an amazing success. So that alone is super impressive. But the facts are facts, and this is the first Marvel Studios movie in a long time to not be a full success. Anywho, so how do I feel about the movie in general? Is this a bad movie? No, it is not a bad movie. Is it a great movie? No. Is it the best Marvel Studios movie? God, no. It just has the exact same problem as Thor: Love and Thunder, where it's ridiculously ambitious. and it needed more production time. The end. There's so many elements in this movie that feel horrifically rushed. If they would just slow down and just taken 2 more months of production to work things out, to work all these elements out, I guarantee you this movie would be a lot better. Which is the exact same way that I feel about Love and Thunder. If they would just put it back in the oven and let it cook a little longer, it would have been awesome. But at the same time, one of my favorite aspects of this movie is its biggest detriment, the fact that it's so ambitious. I respect the hell out of that. A lot of people have complained that, they jumped the gun by using Kang the Conqueror as the villain, by using such a huge villain in this movie. But that to me is one of my favorite aspects of the film, the fact that it's so ambitious, that they went with such a big villain and such a big story, and they made the setting of the story, one of the grandest and most elaborate corners of the Marvel Universe, the quantum realm, the microverse. So yeah, yes, it's big. Yes, there's a lot of elements that didn't work. Yes, there's a lot of stuff that's there that really didn't need to be there, that served no higher purpose, like the guy that can read minds. Why was he there? What was the point of him? Uh, there's nothing in this movie that couldn't have been achieved without him. Another big complaint that I've heard is the way Kang was defeated, how he just allows the Pym family to, keep their equipment, keep the Pym particles, and just run around his realm, and he doesn't just confiscate their stuff. He's not smarter. He completely underestimates them. Guys, that's Kang. That's exactly who Kang is. He is so pretentious. He's so full of himself that ultimately his weakness is his pride. The fact that he underestimates everyone. So Hank defeating him with an army of ants that he refused to see as a threat, 100% Kang. Kang, in his first appearance as Kang the Conqueror, as the variant that we're seeing in this movie, walked into Avengers Mansion and tried to fight all the Avengers by himself. Just like in the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon. That is 100% canon. That's how full of himself this guy is. And of course, he got his ass kicked, just like he did in this movie. He underestimated the Pyms, he underestimated Scott Lang, and he nearly got eaten by ants and then got swallowed into the very thing that was his goal, the power source to his time-traveling chair. So there you go. That's 100% accurate to the character. I don't have a problem with that. But at the end of the day, it's a fun, cool adventure movie where they travel to another world that reminds me of stuff like Journey to the Center of the Earth. It reminds me of movies like Mom and Dad Save the World. And I think that even though there are some bad elements and most of the reviews are justified, I feel that there's enough good in it and enough heart in it to justify it. To still make it enjoyable. I will say that this is the first Ant-Man movie to not be co-written by Paul Rudd, and it shows. Like, that level of heart and humor that the first two movies had are completely missing, or mostly missing. I wish he would have co-written this one. I wish I knew why that didn't happen. I want to assume this because of the timing and their schedule. Because he was making Ghostbusters Afterlife while when this movie just officially went into production. So who knows? Who knows what the reason is? Hopefully we'll know one day, but it could seriously use, the story in this movie could have used his voice in it, because I feel that was one of the key elements that made the other two movies great. But it is what it is. He's still Ant-Man, and he still did an amazing job, and he is still the character that made me fall in love with this franchise. So, could have been far, far worse. So, the most divisive element in this movie, and I've heard this over and over again, was the portrayal of Kang. And I think most of the complaints truly stem from the fact that the effect to make Kang live action wasn't that great. It really, I agree. It looks like the pre-visualization version. It looks unfinished, all right? I agree with that. The only time in the movie where I felt that he looked good was when he died, which makes me wonder if they worked on that scene first, because that's the only time where the proportions and the animation I thought was very good. The rest of the time he just looked stretched. He just looked like this. It looked very weird. So yeah, like I said, it just the continuing issue with this movie is that it feels rushed. It feels like they really needed to take more time and let themselves sit back, watch the movie, figure out what worked, what didn't, and then go back to the drawing board, come up with a new strategy, and go back out on set and refilm some things and rework some things. Filmmaking is a process of trial and error and figuring out what works. And the fact that they took the Ant-Man franchise from its very familiar setting and they stuck it in a brand new setting was very bold and very brave, but it required more time to see if that worked. They already knew that Ant-Man in San Francisco, you know, committing thefts and going on all these cool like heists and things. They knew that that worked, but they took Ant-Man out of that and they put him in a new setting. So they really needed to take their time to see how to make that work, but they didn't. And to me, MODOK is the visual metaphor for that, where it's a great idea. I'm glad they included him. MODOK is a perfect fit for the Ant-Man movies, but he's new. He is a foreign character being brought into this franchise, and they needed to take more time with him. And it's apparent by the looks of him that they didn't. Here are two legitimate complaints that I have, two things that I thought, okay, no, that really 100% could have been better. And number one, that we didn't see the Ant family use any new abilities or powers or anything. Something that I thought was really cool is the innovative ways in which they would use their powers in the movies or in most of their appearances. Like, one of the coolest moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the first time Scott goes giant, turns into Giant Man in Civil War. Cool. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, well, like the shrinking and growing of the vehicles and the building, and when Hope throws the salt shaker and makes it giant and blocks the bad guy's path. All that stuff was so cool, and I didn't see any big innovations in this movie with their powers. I thought there were a lot of great opportunities that they didn't take. There was a deleted scene from Endgame during the final battle where Scott was supposed to push a button on his suit and create an army of giant ants that was supposed to decimate Thanos' army. And they didn't use that scene, they didn't film it at all. It didn't go past the pre-visualization stage, because if Ant-Man can do that, he doesn't need the Avengers. So they kind of did that in this movie with Hank defeating Kang with all the giant ants, but it wasn't as cool as it was in those storyboards that I'm describing. Anyway, so, oh, and my second and final complaint about this movie is that it was supposed to end with Scott and Hope getting stuck in the quantum realm, them sacrificing themselves to make sure that their family was safe and that Kang couldn't follow them through the portal of convenience that was created at Kang's Citadel. Even though they had to shrink down and go through this massive tunnel to get there, they just stepped through a portal and they're back to their regular size and back to in our world. There you go. Anyway, Kang has better technology. Anyway, I hated that they sacrifice themselves, they defeat Kang, that's awesome, and then the portal just opens behind them. I don't have a problem with them coming back to the real world. You know, I don't want them to get stuck, but every situation in a movie, every bad situation needs to have stakes. They established the stakes that if they went back, they would get stuck there. They only had one shot, at least at that very moment, to get back to Earth, get back to the regular size realm, let's call it. They established that, and both Scott and Hope take the chance. They sacrifice themselves. They go back into the quantum realm to stop Kang, and then they violate that immediately by reopening the portal and allowing them passage back. And I wish they would have stuck to their guns. I hate that they went back and this the way they fixed it, in their opinion. So the movie wouldn't have a bummer ending. It would have explained why the Ant-Man and the Wasp are not in future Marvel movies, and why Cassie is now the predominant character with those powers and abilities. And if they went back again, it's something that they needed to work on a little longer and figure out how to justify them coming back. But them saying, oh, we need to go home, and the portal popping up behind them, that really didn't work, and that really, really bothered me. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, I love these characters. I'm glad they got a curtain call. I'm glad that they went out in such a magnificent and elaborate fashion. And I'm glad they got a happy ending, even if it was one that, in my opinion, was not earned. And yes, I 100% want to see more of Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang, as the new Ant-Woman, stature, singer, don't care what they name her. I want to see her in her purple suit again, kicking ass next to the Avengers in future movies. Can't wait to see her again, along with all these new characters like Kate Bishop and Kamala Khan and Adam Warlock. Can't wait to see them all again in future movies. Fantastic choice. I wish her luck. Continuing to play this character, maybe even carrying the franchise in the future. Anyway, so those are my opinions on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and its fictional characters. I highly encourage you to agree or disagree in the comment section below and give your own take in the movie. If you hated it, it's fine. You're not the only one. Almost every critic in the business hated it, but I'm among the very, very, very few, the minority, who still enjoyed this movie in spite of its many, many flaws. So there you go. Before I sign off, one very, 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 very quick announcement. Right now on my Patreon page, I did an unscripted video about the Super Mario Brothers movie, a movie that a lot of people have been asking me to talk about. If you want to check that out, but you're not a patron, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/E-Rant and pledge $1. That's it. You pledge $1 and you get to support me, and continue to allow me to continue being the Blockbuster Buster and making these videos. And in return, you get bonus videos. You can't beat that with a wooden stick. So there you go. Thank you so much for your ongoing support, because the fact of the matter is that I could not do what I do without you.